Hello, Year 13. I'm on holiday at the moment, as you are, and so I wondered what I should do with my time. And I thought, what better way could I spend my half term than talking about a doll's house to a video camera for your benefits? You're not in my life for this week. You're off, obviously, eating macaroons and doing the tarantella and all sorts of other fun activities that you fill your lives with. Um, so, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Doll's House, and particularly going to talk about what I've just been doing, which is marking all these lovely essays, which has taken me most of this afternoon to wade through them. But I've got to the end, and I want to talk specifically about some of the common feedback that I've given to lots of you. I would say the feedback obviously varies because every essay is different, but something that has cropped up a number of times has been the attention to close language, form, structure, detail, and I've asked you to pay more attention to closely analysing lifts. So you've got your L for language, your I for imagery, your F for form, your T for tone, and your S for structure. And in any essay you write, whether it's your coursework or whether it's in your exam, you want to make sure that your big, intelligent, sophisticated ideas are backed up with really close language analysis. And then you're not kind of talking too generally about the text without zooming in nice and closely. So I'm going to give you an example that I'm going to just talk through myself. And then I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs from a couple of essays that are really good examples of that, and then hopefully that will become clear, and hopefully we can lift that. The bit in the mark scheme that you want to be aiming to get to, which is an A-star bit in the mark scheme, describes mastery of detail. So it's picking out a really tiny little detail in a text and being able to master it and saying exactly what is being done by the playwright with that little detail. So I've got my copy of Adolphus here, and I'm going to read from just a couple of lines from page 62, the bottom of page 62. And Helmer has just been talking to Nora about why he has to get rid of Krogstad from the bank. And if you remember, his main reason is because Krogstad keeps calling him by his first name. And it's Nora taking control or kind of being a little bit confrontational with Torvald for one of the first times in the play. And she says to him, Nora says, Torvald, you can't mean this seriously. And Torvald replies, oh, and why not? And Nora says, but it's so petty. Helmer, what did you say? Petty? You think I am petty? No, Torvald, no, of course. No, Torvald, dear, of course you're not. That's just why. Don't quibble. You call my motives petty. Then I must be petty too. Petty. I see. Well, I've had enough of this. And he goes to the door and calls into the hall, Helen! And off he goes to sack Krogstad once and for all. So we've got this moment, and in terms of ideas, you might be talking about the fact that we've got a wife or woman standing up to her husband in Victorian society, which is surprising and perhaps countercultural in that she is willing to speak her mind, and she's speaking it for the first time, and so we see this in Nora, and we can see the development of her as a character, and we can see that Ibsen himself is challenging society. He's challenging this view that men can just do what they want and use their power to in unjust ways without consequence or without challenge. And this is an example of Nora, someone who probably in Victorian society's view shouldn't challenge her husband. Stepping in and challenging him. Now, those are our ideas, and that's what we might write about. But then we need to hone in on some detail that fits into language, imagery, form, tone, structure. So, Nora starts with Torvald. You can't mean this seriously. Now, there's no metaphor, there's no simile, there's no personification in that line. And sometimes we think, well, I can't do any language analysis because of that. But we can talk about the tone, we can talk about the way in which Nora speaks. And in this particular moment, I believe that she would communicate this in a shocked tone of voice, and she would also have some assertiveness to her tone. And that assertiveness is really important because it's part of the power play in this play. And she is communicating this with an assertive tone. And Helmer, he responds as, "Oh, and why not?" Um, and he responds with a question. And it's important that he responds with a question because he doesn't receive this criticism and just accept it. Instead, he responds by challenging in a confrontational way the way in which Nora has challenged him. He won't accept what she has said. Now, we can also talk about the form at this point because obviously there is an audience sat there watching this and they can sense the tension um, and they can sense the conflict at this moment, and something is happening within them. And I think probably what is happening within most people watching this is they are siding with Nora for the first time. They are thinking, yes, Nora, you are right. Torvald is petty, he is ridiculous, and you are telling it how it is. And we are at the same time both admiring Nora, who we haven't admired much at this point in the play, and we are seeing Torvald as ridiculous. And if we talk about that from the audience's point of view, we're talking about the form. We can also think about the fact that maybe that reaction would be slightly different if it was a 19th century audience and a modern day audience. And again, we're thinking about the form. In terms of structure, we can also think about the structure. We can think about this that Nora has developed as a character, and her development of the development that she has had as a character is to become this more confrontational woman. It's not particularly confrontational, but becomes slightly more confrontational. And in terms of structure, we can talk about how this contrasts with the earlier Nora, that would just accept things and allow herself to be patronised. Helmer develops, we can continue talking about this moment. There's so much to talk about this moment. Don't quibble. The imperative sentence, the command, don't quibble. You, accusatory, you call my motives petty, then I must be petty too. He doesn't mean he's petty, does he? He's very sarcastic at that moment. He's got a sarcastic tone of voice. Petty, one word sentence, we call that a holophrase. Petty, he's exclaiming it. We can talk about how the actor might deliver that line in an arrogant way, perhaps, in an angry way. There may be other ways as well to consider. Well, I've had enough of this. Pompous, childish, many things we can say about the tone and the way that they are speaking, the way that Torvald is speaking at this moment. He also interrupts her as well. That's just why don't quibble. That's when he jumps in at that moment. So lots you could say in terms of language, imagery, not so much imagery in that moment, but under that live setting and mastering those details, picking out little bits and talking about how they work in terms of the grand meaning. And that will move us up hugely in terms of the grades that we are getting. Let me give you a couple of examples from your own essays, because it's not that no one has done this, and certainly everyone's done this to some degree, but there's a need as a class, as a group, to improve upon this skill. So let me find a paragraph here. We've got analysis of the patronising language. So, my little songbird and little spendthrift are all names used to describe Nora. The adjective little immediately patronises and belittles Nora, making her seem like a child. Often, little is followed by a negative remark that Nora seems to accept because she feels unable to oppose Torvald's overpowering views. The use of squirrel and songbird starts to dehumanise her, making her seem inferior, with their lack of intelligence and size in comparison to humans, and therefore left open to being controlled by Torvald. Really good language analysis, really tight. Talking about the adjective little, talking about how it's patronising, talking about the imagery of the squirrel and the songbird, talking about lots of linguistic details. Really, really good. And that's the kind of detail you want to keep up throughout your essays. Another one here, we've got discussion of the macaroon motif, one of the greatest motifs in literature ever. The motif is first referenced when Helmer first asks if she has been indulging herself. Not a little nibble at a macaroon. Nora responds to this submissively, already talking about something to do with a tone, a submissive tone. You know I can never act against your wishes. The adverb, it's not an adverb, it's an adjective. It's quite correct in there, but we're having a go at language. The adjective The adjective little, used by Helmer, signifies the overbearing, authoritative nature which he possesses in regarding to dealings with Nora, which is disguised under phonologically soft, idyllic language. He describes her as my little sweet tooth. This objectifies her, suggesting Helmer likes being able to control her and would prefer Nora as an object to be controlled. This language contrasts the subliminal message of what he is saying, which is she must always do what he says. Again, lots and lots of language detail, picking out that language detail and linking it to broader meaning. So, what I would like you to do for your homework is I would like you to look at your essays again. I would like you to choose one of the quotes that you picked out and maybe didn't do this job with, and I would like you to make some notes, consider how you would analyze it using lifts, mastering a detail within that quote. I'd like you to come and we'll start the lesson. We'll all feedback about the quote that we picked out and what we would say about it. Okay. See you later.